The Coffin of Andrew and Renee, developed by Graveyard Shift Studio, is a Coffin fan mod taking place in an alternative universe where Ashley Graves is replaced with Renee Graves, the mother of the two siblings in the base game. So Andrew, instead of having to bear the toxic codependent relationship between him and his sister, will now have to deal with Oedipal complex in this mod. Development for this fan mod officially started in June 2024 and then had episode 1 released in October of the same year. Right now, Graveyard Shift is developing episode 2 while also improving and updating character sprite as well as cutscene arts for episode 1. Even though this fan mod was only released like 4 months ago, it is arguably the most popular fan mod among Coffin fans in recent times, not only from inside but also outside of the fandom, for various reasons. It's apparent that the Coffin of Andrew and Renee is made by Renee fans for Renee fans and hack lovers, but the mod itself is not just a reskin of the original game for the sake of shipping these characters together. In here, the dialogues and events were changed, there are new sprites, cutscene arts, and even soundtracks that aim to be as close to the original as possible. Certain people may complain about Andrew and Renee being out characters, that some events literally didn't make sense or couldn't happen. A few details and questions about the lore behind this mod are still waiting to be explained in this next episode. But for a fan mod that is not afraid to try and experiment with new ideas, it still has a good start. The Coffin of Andrew and Renee somehow just spearheaded in many views, surpassing every current Coffin mods. You don't know how much it has achieved in such a short amount of time. But I already introduced it enough, so it's time to talk to the people behind it and ask the important questions. As for formality, I should let you guys introduce yourself to the audience. Please do.
Yeah, hi, I'm Azrealm. I am the lead artist on the TCOAAR project and one of the producers for Graveyard Shift.
Hello, I'm literally me. I am the lead writer of the TCOAAL project.
Hello, I am Unknown, the creative producer for Grey Shift of the mod.
Alright, thank you. I'm gonna ask a few simple questions first. How and when you guys discover the Coffin of Andy and Leyley?
So I myself actually learned about TCOAAL through a lot of the memes and the art that was being posted. I part of a lot of the internet of artists that exists out there, and so I saw a lot of the jokes and things being made. I'm like, this is really interesting. What is this? And I looked into it and I saw it was a game and tried it out and absolutely loved it.
For me, I saw, like Azrael, I saw a lot of the memes and like various Discord servers and YouTube videos and Twitter and stuff and so on and so forth. And eventually I asked some of my friends, okay, who are these two characters who keep appearing in these memes? And they told me about the game and I looked it up and I thought, oh, this sounds interesting. So, and eventually I bought the game and played it, and then I guess that's when I became part of the fandom.
The first time I know about the mod was, well, like many other, from the video of Manly Badass Hero, the game jam one, the first video of it, when it was like just a small
Episode 1.
like just episode 1. Yes, that was like the first time I was aware about the existence of the game. However, I didn't got into the community when episode 2 released. That when, like, you know, all that meme stuff became like semi-mainstream in the internet culture.
Since you guys are the mothers of the Coffin and the Renee, what made y'all become interested in Renee? What made you guys want to make a mod where she is one of the main characters?
So for me, I personally fell in love with the character from playing the game. Just I loved how much of a dark side she had, as well as the fact that I have an enjoyment of characters who I personally can connect and relate to. And being a bit of an older woman that I am, I saw aspects of myself in her that made me go, oh, she's an interesting individual. Why is she doing these things to her own kids? And it just explored an interesting space for me. It's really what got me interested in Renee as a person.
Yes, so for me, I explained a lot of my reasoning in the progress report before in our January progress report, but for me, I just kind of found it fascinating because in the original game, after episode 2, and especially after the Olive Branches video, a lot of the TCOAAL fandom began to see, well, Renee is kind of the origin of evil in the TCOAAL world. Andrew and Ashley, at least, potentially have the excuse that their evil actions were motivated by, you know, their poor upbringing, which was Renee's fault, and that makes Renee, in a way, you could argue, culpable for Andrew and Ashley's crimes as well as her own crimes. So I thought, how about we kind of examine this worst of the worst, the origin of the Graves family malaise in more detail. And I also felt, given that the game heavily implies that Renee and her husband are in a similar codependent relationship to Andrew and Ashley, wouldn't it be interesting to see these two characters separated from their significant others and left with only each other? That's why I became invested in the idea of this mod.
As for me, it sort of started as a slow progress because at first I only know Renee as that old woman that sold out children, but over time when I was in the community, I had somewhat grown more fondly of her because of, well, in our grand stream of effect, she is by far out of all the fictional characters, like in every different media, the most unique one. See a lot of media of, their parents selling out their children for like money, as well as for,
There's
like,
yeah, there's a reason somebody does that, and it was just a unique look. Sorry, continue on now.
yeah, that as well as just the simplistic design of her like clothes style is nothing, nothing very revealing, nothing
Very
too,
casual.
like, yeah, very casual. Like that is something that I admit from what I've seen is somewhat semi-rare, like in the community as well from multiple others. Like just a woman like in just simplistic casual yet committing these heinous crimes. It has struck to me as very interesting.
A
And
bit on
also,
the a bit. Would you say a bit on the like the femme fatale side,
yeah,
almost?
almost like
Like
that.
surprisingly suburban femme fatale,
Yeah,
which is an interesting take.
yeah. Either that is like just my idea, the construct of it, or my personal taste in things.
Okay. Do you guys have a second favorite character from Coffin, or is there other aspect in the game that you also like?
For myself personally, I actually really like Andrew as a character, and I kind of prefer Andrew over Ashley in the base game, simply because I saw a lot of my own home life in them as well, being that there's somebody who kind of needed to raise somebody else and be a secondary parent. I saw a lot of that and understood a lot of that in that character. And I just found them sort of compelling as a person who has this enabler streak for this person who they're actively trying to raise because of the environment that they're put in. And I find them fun, and their general approach has made me laugh a number of times. So if I was going to choose a second favorite, it would be Andrew.
Yes, the same for me as Andrew as well. Given that I am the lead writer, you probably won't be surprised to find that I'm kind of drawn to the character of Andrew because he seems to be a fairly literary-minded character. There are references to him being, into poetry and stuff in the original game, and we build on those references in our mod, of course. And also, like, his approach to solving problems feels a bit more realistic to me. He has a tendency to panic in the face of danger and the threat of the various problems that he gets into because of Ashley's shenanigans or forces beyond their control, and he panics in a way that I think is very realistic and reminds me of how I would probably react in those situations. So I guess you could say, appropriately enough, Andrew is literally me.
Yeah.
He tries to.
Personally, for me, while I do show some likeness for Andrew and Ashley, personally, my second favorite had to go to Julia, just because like she like the most innocent person in the wrong place in the wrong time, went through a lot of shit that didn't need to be in the first place, and is by all account, in every single media in this community is absolutely the victim. Just like the sheer unadultery of like her just literally personification of the innocent soul getting brutally beaten down. Yeah, I just kind of feel bad for her.
Yeah, she probably is need to stay away from the siblings, or just gonna end up in one of the endings or something.
Most likely.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see how our arc concludes.
Me too.
So when do you guys start having ideas for the Coffin of Andrew and Renee?
I can answer that.
Unknown. Yeah, I was gonna say, you want to take this one, Unknown?
Yeah. So it all started casually in a simple talk when I was in the community. Back then, when I was like, just one of the members, I talked to this one very interesting person, this clown guy that's go by his name. And we sort of like talked for a while. We sort of became somewhat close friends. Later on, during a simple discussion, I came up with the idea of jokingly saying like, what if I could like make a mod for like Renee, but maybe add Andrew in it as well, since both of them are canon characters and both of them do seem pretty similar.
Like more
I
or less,
I held to that idea for like way longer than I thought I have. But fast forward like 6 or 5 months later, I recently saw this art piece. It's basically like a redraw art of like one of the official promo art from Nemly.
devlog art.
Yeah, the devlog art where Ashley is leaning on a TV. So the redrawn art was, they replaced Ashley with Renee, and something just snapped when I just saw that. Like something like recessed from from the back of my mind, thinking like I could make a mod out of this. So I talked to the artist that made it and asked him like, hey, I want to make this mod, about Andrew and Renee, like project mod. Are you interested in helping me making it become a reality? And he was down for it. So that was just like one person. Then I went to the our server, the TCOAAL Everything server, and talked to some of my closest friends that I was with, and brought up the idea like, hey, would you want to like make? Because at first I was joking, like it was basically like a joke project. Like I didn't took it that seriously enough. One of the members, like the first member, like literally me here, and like the other one is Bone Guard. I brought them in to like I introduced them, the project, and want to see if they're willing to join. They accepted, and like at first we were like just 5 people, like 2 writers, me, an artist, and a programmer named Rose. In the beginning of the project, we nearly got at most of the episode 1 writing structure down, but before that, we actually making some good progress on the script, and it hit us that perhaps we got actually something going on here. So I made the announcements, the official announcement of the project. At first, everyone fucking loved it. Like everyone liked the idea of a mod that had like another character that is most recognized instead of like Andrew and Ashley. And a lot of people actually were willing to help make this project reality. A lot of artists, a couple of programmers, writers. 2 of them one of them you see right now. And
Hello.
yeah, and later on, it took me a bit longer to realize it, but maybe this mod can actually be taken more seriously now instead of like being just joke mod.
So I could actually talk on a bit more of that and how I got involved with the project in that regard, because around the time that I joined, there was a bit of a shift in the approach as to what we were doing with this.
Was that the first?
If you don't mind me jumping in here.
Yeah, you don't
yes,
mind.
okay.
So what got me involved with this project was initially that around the time I was making artwork and the style and just trying some things out, and I happened to see a post on YouTube that was, hey, we've got a Discord server for fans of this series. If you like this series, come join us. You can check it out. I'm like, well, sure, why not? I might as well join and see what's going on. And so I hopped in the Everything server, and I saw some posts about, oh, here's a mod section. We're working on different projects. And I saw this mod specifically and some of the initial discussion that was going on with it. And I was like, this can actually be a really compelling concept of how this alt universe would go, is if in the past the timeline split. And that factor got me really interested at the start. And so I reached out to Unknown, because at the time they were like, hey, we're looking for artists who can do this style, make this work to make this project a reality. And so I was like, you know what, sure, I might as well throw my hat into the ring. And so I reached out and he saw that I could do the work and he's like, cool, we'll bring you on as an artist. Mind you, it was later on discovered through, them doing writing sessions and things like that I was able to let them know, hey, I have a master's degree in animation. I taught classes on script writing and storyboarding. I know a lot about the structures of what goes into game design because I've worked along with those people. And so I very quickly turned from just one of the artists to a leading member of the team, and that's what helped get me involved. And we were able to help sort of shape and direct what we wanted this project to be from that initial thought of let's just make a goofy mod into something that can be a little bit more substantial than that.
Yes, and for me, I was in the right place at the right time. I was in the everything server that Azram and Unknown have already mentioned. I was there right at the time that Unknown started opened this thread where people would discuss the mod, and everyone was just brainstorming ideas for what the story would be. And one of those brainstormers was me. And fortunately, Unknown and Boneguard were so impressed with what me and another member named Surya Stuff, who's the other lead writer, came up with in those brainstorming posts that they asked me, hey, would you get to be one of our lead writers? And I eagerly accepted that. And here I am, being one of the big writing people on this project. Lucky me.
Alright. Did your team encounter any problem when making the first episode of the mod? And what was the worst thing that happened to this mod?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
we had quite a few obstacles in the production of it.
Yep.
We still do. Every now and then, problems come up, but for the most part, the two big problems was the public one, which most people know about, which are the copyright strikes, which we believe were fraudulent copyright strikes, not from Kit9, but from another
Malicious
source.
user.
Impersonator.
And they did actually turn out to be fraudulent, which was an interesting discovery.
Yes, and that meant that we were constantly playing a little game of musical chairs with the sites that we could actually host the mods on. Thankfully, Deg Mods was there to make sure that until stuff like the Nexus mods came back, we had a place to host the mod, and they promised...
Seriously, shout out to Deg.
Yes, they promised us that the mod would never be taken down from their platform, and that was the truth. So we're very grateful to them for that. The other big problem was the lesser-known problem that I think only a few eagle-eyed people might have noticed signs of. In our teaser trailer, we advertised a September 2024 release, and you might notice that the mod actually released in early October 2024. That was because when we made that trailer, we had certain ideas about how quickly the coding would be, but we discovered that the coding was actually going to take a lot longer than we had anticipated. So the art was done, story was done, it's that we needed the mod coded so that it was actually in a playable state, and we ended up overshooting September just a bit and releasing in October. And we have learned from that. We've brought on some extra coders onto the team, and we've also learned why Nemle probably hasn't been giving a specific release date for the episode.
We learned our
3.
lesson.
Yes, we did. So, for future reference, if we do give you a release date, it will basically mean that the mod is done, and we are not going to give a release date that is too far in advance to avoid a similar kind of problem in the future.
So there are like 30 people working on this mod. Has Graveyard Shift always been this big, or were there fewer participants initially?
No.
So from what... Yeah,
Yeah.
go for it.
There's a handful of people at first. There's myself, Unknown, another person, Bone Guard, Surya Stuff, who I also mentioned, and a couple of others. But it has expanded quite massively as time goes on, and we have quite a few people working on it now who've all done their part.
They're very passionate people just making this thing together because we want it to exist. I was not part of the initial group that made this, but I joined in when it was a group of about 20, and then since it's grown to about 40 in total, and it's all just people who are putting in their free time to work and make this thing a reality, and it's been fantastic.
Yep.
with this many people working on the mod, do you guys think you will be able to release episode 2 of the Renee mod before episode 3A and 4 of the original game?
I mean,
That
I
is
I
that's
hope
our
so.
hope. Yeah.
It depends, because if you'll notice in the latest progress update, Demley has floated the idea of doing another vote on if episode 3 will release now. So, depending on how that vote goes, maybe we will, maybe we won't. It would be nice if we could, but
We can't guarantee that it would be out in like a month. That's what happens. That's what happens. But we're working on it and trying to do our best to get things moving forward. We got a lot of interesting things in store, and it's the other aspect that is a little bit difficult with how we're handling episode 2 is just the sheer volume and shift of what we're looking to do with episode 2. I can get more into that later, but there's a lot we're planning on doing with episode 2 and 3 and 4 after that. So
I mean, you guys are at least.
our hope is yes, but we can't guarantee it.
It will be at least 2 months before we actually have 3A if the revolt result in releasing the episode sooner.
again, we can't really promise anything
Yeah, it's
when it comes to release dates.
it's
But
understandable.
we're trying.
We'd like to, yeah, we are trying.
We're trying our damnedest.
As Graveyard Shift has 40 people working on it, and there's probably maybe more in the near future. Do these artists, writers, programmers, do they get paid for doing the job, or do they just join the mod project for fun?
I can answer this. Most of the people that join do this on their free time. However, there are some artists, people I do talk to, that there are some of them that actually have this project have affected them in a negative way, either being having their budget a bit time restricted due to the project taking their time to work on. So I have assisted some of the people that actually do need it, assisting them on bills or buying them equipment like a new drawing tablet and such. But for the majority of our team, they're doing this on their free. I will gladly help any of them if they do need some help.
Yeah,
But,
this is mainly a passion project of individuals who are dedicating their free time and volunteering to work on this. Here and there are things that do get covered financially, but we're not able to, because it's a mod, take any sort of financial compensation for the work that we're doing. So this is all out of pocket and purely for the joy and love of TCOAAL.
We do this for the love of the game.
Nice. About the mod and the story of it, is the toxic codependent relationship between Andrew and Renee based on anything else besides Andrew and Ashley's relationship from the original game? Since the mod aims to explore the audible complex and incest again.
Yes, it is. So, even before I'd started working on this mod, I'd heard of this phenomenon called emotional incest, which is actually something that is studied in academia. And I thought, well, if anyone made a different kind of TCOAAL, that might be an interesting psychological thing to explore. And when I saw this project, I realized, we should really bring that to this and try to base some of how we write the characters on that phenomenon, because it seems tailor-made for it.
And lo and behold,
It's an aspect of reality that's not really covered much or dealt with in a lot of public works. And so having the opportunity to sort of express and show how people can have these toxic codependent relationships that are inherently problematic in that sense, but not a lot of people realize just how problematic and toxic that can be. So I encourage the fact that it is about a different type of approach with that.
Okay. Since the release of the Coffin and Renee episode 1, there has been a lot of debate, a lot of arguments happening from the subreddit, Discord servers, even Twitter. Do you guys think that the mod itself happened to be caught in
Controversy.
not exactly controversies, but a misunderstanding? Because usually a lot of comments under my video saying that I think the Renee mod is better than the original because it doesn't have Ashley, it doesn't have weird scenes, it's more wholesome and less toxic. Even though it is obvious that relationship between Andrew and Renee in this mod is just as messed up, or you can say worse than in the original game, and that you guys would definitely go all out with the border cutscenes in the upcoming episode 2, just like what Leyley has done to the original game. Then you have people who argue that Renee has some redeeming qualities, that she's not actually a bad person and deserves to have a second chance, you know. They've also been asking Leyley to add in the third route where Andrew can side with Renee and betray Ashley so that he and the rest of the Graves family members can start over again. We all know how Leyley responded to that. And then there are the ones who said this mod was made to just fulfill the incest fantasy of Renee and Andrew shippers. They hate it for trying to paint Renee as a good and caring mother as opposed to the Renee in the original game. In other case, they hate this mod because it's about incest between mother and son. They don't care about its plot, just like how they dislike the original plot. I believe there are a lot of misunderstandings that people have about the Renee mod. But for now, what do you think about all of this madness that your mod has accidentally fueled?
I'd
So-
object
so
to
there's a-
fear.
Yeah, there's a lot there to sort of answer. So I guess we can try and chunk that into pieces. First off, I personally feel that yes, the mod is very misunderstood for its approach and what it's trying to do, and what we're trying to do with the project. I feel that a lot of people look at it and say, "Oh, this is more wholesome. It's less toxic." All these and angles like that. And I'm like, I beg to differ and question your experience with connection and people. If you feel that the connection that we've written for Andrew and Renee as less toxic than the one that Andrew and Ashley have, simply because it's a different type and approach to it. And literally, you can get into a bit more of how the Renee and Andrew that we have are the same Renee and Andrew from the base game, but their history is very different from the base game history.
Yes, that is true. So people say the mod is out of character. No, I don't really believe they are out of character. So we've shown many times that the Renee of the base game is still in there, but because a certain event happened differently in our timeline from how it did in the base timeline, she outwardly appears to be a different person because her fixation with her husband as the significant person in her life has now transferred onto Andrew, and the reason that happened is because of events going slightly differently. She was confronted in the form of a dead child in a box with her failures as a parent. Now, because she is who she is, she's not the kind of person who likes to take responsibility for things. What does she do? She blames Ashley for everything, while convincing herself that she did a good job with Andrew. Andrew didn't do anything wrong. It was
She had a good
only
life with
out-
Andrew as a baby. That's
Yeah.
why they
Yes,
had Ashley.
Yeah, she wouldn't have had Ashley if she didn't enjoy having Andrew around. But the thing is, once she's confronted with these shortcomings, she decides everything is Ashley's fault. I did a good job with Andrew. It was just this one child was just inherently evil. There was something wrong with her. I'm not a bad mother. I raised Andrew well. It's just Ashley was the only problem. I actually think that's a very in-character approach for someone like Renee to use.
And the thing with Andrew's character as a whole is that they are somebody who, at their core, needs to be tied to their person, needs to be tied to someone or something that is their rock, their stability. They're a very paranoid, anxious individual. And so when that individual that they would have throughout the history been tied to is ripped out of their lives, Renee sort of filled in that slot as the person that they connect to and molded to, and grew up with that individual being their rock, their connection in that sense, that their stability. And so that forces somebody to develop and grow in a different way. It's still at their core, both of these characters are the exact same characters from the base game. They have just shifted in how they grew up and the time that they've spent together. And that's kind of at the core of what this mod is trying to do. It's an alternate universe of if the timeline changed. In our opening teaser, we said the timeline has changed, and it's because Andrew was confronted at a young age by his mother about what was going on, what was bothering him, everything with Mina. that it sort of changed and shifted a lot of how their history developed.
Yes, like Nimley herself said in her last dev blog, her approach to writing characters is sort of the cause and effect, and how one event influences characters, and then the next event influences them. We simply went back and changed the events so that they happen differently from then on, and thus, in keeping with that approach of cause and effect for character development, the characters ended up being different people by the time of the start of the game. You also mentioned people who say that our mod is better. While I am flattered that people like the mod that much, I wouldn't say our mod is better, because like Andy and Leyley, it really is a modern Gothic masterpiece.
We all
I would say that maybe the
if,
reason, yeah, maybe the reason.
if we didn't love to, we keep tripping over each other. If we didn't love TCOAAL in the original, we wouldn't be making the mod. I want to be clear to people about that, because I've seen comments online of like, oh, they don't love or respect the original project, and it's like, we're doing all this work for free because we love TCOAAL so much. So it's something that I hope people realize, that we're not trying to be in competition with TCOAAL at all.
Yeah.
Literally, you can
Yeah.
continue, and then I can sort of make a different point I have on this.
Yes, we are looking forward to Nimley's episode 3 just as much as everyone else. And what I will say is, when people say that they think that they prefer our mod or prefer the relationship in our mod, I think my theory is that what those people mean is maybe it feels like something maybe they know someone who has had a relationship with someone like Renee in their lives, or maybe they've known someone like Renee in their lives, because the kind of relationship depicted in our mod, I would wager is a bit more common in real life to have a mother like Renee than it is to have a sister like Ashley.
Yeah, because
That's just my theory.
yeah, that is a good one, and most because nearly everyone have a mother figure, but not a lot of people have a sister. So it would make a lot of sense.
Especially one as insane as her.
Yeah, it is true.
Yeah.
Especially if they are mentally insane. So yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising that a lot of people can I guess relate to the mod, since it is like a mother and son type of stuff. Like even
Right.
then it could be like, mother and daughter, like both are interchangeable and both can definitely be related to.
Yeah.
So one of the comments that I also notice is a lot of people feeling that Graveyard Shift is in a competition of some sort with Kit 9 and Nemley. We are not trying in any sort of way to compete. The best way I like to describe it is, if you look at other modding communities, for example, you have Fallout London, which is a project made by fans for Fallout 4, which it's its own series and has everything. But Fallout London is distinctly its own game, its own lore, its separate thing. So it's like trying to compare apples and oranges, instead of trying to think of it as two types of apples that are in competition. It's not, do you like Granny Smith apples or do you like Empire apples? It's more, do you like Granny Smith apples? Also, do you like oranges? They're both fruit. They're both, sweet and citrusy in their own rights, and have different feelings. But when someone's trying to get, an experience of things, everyone has their preferences and their feelings, but we're not trying to compete in that sort of sense. We want to promote, if anything, the original work and any other works that come off of it. It's something that you shouldn't view it as which one is better than the other. It's just enjoy the content that's there. We're a community that's growing and trying to appreciate a unique type and approach to storytelling that TCOAAL does, that I feel there needs to be more of in the world, in the games industry, in the books industry, anything. I feel like there are things that TCOAAL does that really need to be approached and done more of.
Right. There are also many players and viewers stating that the mod doesn't make sense in some aspect, because they find it weird that Andrew would snitch on Ashley after they locked Nina in a box overnight, and that if Ashley was gone that early, then there was no reason for Andrew to ask Julia out and date her in later years. And how did Mr. Graves manage to overcome his submissiveness and divorce Renee, which led to Renee loving and caring for Andrew more as he is the only family member left she's got, etc., etc. And it's fine you don't want to talk about these plot holes because I think the Coffin of Andrew and Renee episode 2 will reveal some answers for most of them. You don't want to spoil any of that, but I want to know, has your team acknowledged these plot holes, and will you guys attempt to patch them in the next episode?
Well, I would say the issue is that they're not. It's not so much that they're plot holes, they're just things that haven't been explained yet because we haven't gotten there in the story. But yes, we have talked about these issues and we have made plans to address them. I can't talk about those without getting into spoilers. The only one I can talk about is the Andrew snitching on Ashley being out of character. Andrew was put on the spot in a way that he wasn't necessarily in the original game, and Renee basically put him into a corner and demanded that he tell her the truth. And if you look at how that scene actually plays out, you will see that he just kind of blurts it out.
He didn't make that conscious choice.
Yeah, she gave him an ultimatum and he just blurted it out without really thinking. It wasn't some premeditated betrayal of Ashley. It's just a child basically being put in a very frightening position, and he panics and he says something that maybe he wouldn't have said if he'd thought about it a bit more.
Renee is somebody who very much cares about how people view her as an individual. And the last thing she would want, especially with 2 young kids, is to be viewed as a bad mother. And so for her to actually approach and take the time to confront Andrew about it was a bit of the split in how our timeline was determined. Is what if Renee actually pursued trying to be viewed as a good mother and doing these things in the way that her character kind of show a little bit of that angle in the base game. And so that's where a lot of that split came from. A lot of spoilers on things, but we are very, very conscious of a lot of the things that people would view as plot holes. So, for example, the whole issue with dating Julia is Andrew is still somebody who wants to appear normal. He has that aspect from Renee. And just because they don't have Ashley in their life anymore doesn't mean that they wouldn't still be viewed as an odd individual. It is something that we are aware of and are looking and will be addressing in future episodes, but we can't really get too much into the weeds and details as to why that is the way it is in our mod.
We don't want to spoil the fun.
Indeed.
The angle with Mr. Graves is another thing that we are going to be very closely looking at in later episodes. We have all of episode 3 all spined out. We know what direction we want to go with episode 4. And I know a lot of people may have viewed episode 1 of our mod being tied too closely to episode 1 of the original, but that was intentional. We wanted to have a foundation that felt natural for where the starting point of everything would go. And then we would quickly fork our story in a different direction from the original. So instead of going down the path where the original game is going, you will very quickly see in episode 2 a change and a shift in the direction of the story, simply because a lot of the history in these characters are different and changed.
Yes. First few minutes, you'll see that it's a very different story.
Yep.
Would that also mean that you guys are going to change episode 1's plot, or just some scenes or some details in it?
There are rework planned for episode 1, but I'm not going to go too much into detail about what those are. But I will say they will be released at the same time that we release episode 2.
Okay.
It's not any rewrites that would necessarily change the overall structure of episode 1. It's more like changes to dialogue, a few different orders in the way conversations go, things that looking back, we went, that's not necessarily what we were looking for in that scene. And really just going through and re-editing and just tweaking some of those things. It'll still distinctly feel and play out just like it is now. There's just going to be slight changes to things as we go forward. And especially, it helps us structurally build more on what we're going to be doing in episode 2 and beyond that.
All right. So there's another big question that I think everyone will request. Will Ashley somehow return in episode 2? And is she going to play an actual role in that episode? Because some people have come up with guesses that Ashley is the one who took Mr. Graves from Renee, and what do you guys think about that theory?
I do
I
love that theory. I
It is something that came up a couple times in our discussions. Is oh, wouldn't this be interesting? But we can't
Yeah.
really say what the plan is. First off, spoilers.
Okay.
Yeah.
We do know that she still exists in our story, and we do have big plans for her, but we can't reveal any of that of what that is at this time, because that might give a little bit too much of the game away in ways.
Right.
Yes. We couldn't possibly confirm or deny.
As there are people who learn of Coffin because of the Renee mod, do you think people should play the original game first and then try out the mod later, or try out the mod
I would
first? Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah,
would definitely say play the
Absolutely.
original game.
yeah, I would give your credits to the original.
Yes. Learn where we came from before playing our mod.
I have seen that like a couple of times where people have actually played the mod first, but since they were like so enthralled with the character and our mod, they're actually a bit hesitant to actually play the original due to like them losing their perspective of the characters, which is pretty interesting
Honest-
for me.
It's been interesting seeing the number of people who have stated that, oh, I started to play the original because of seeing the Renee mod being made and done, which made us feel fantastic. But at the same time, it's like we're doing exactly what our intention was from the get-go, is to get more people interested in games like this and ways to approach story that we absolutely love. So the fact that people are putting similar praise of our mod to the original is fantastic. But please go play the original as well. You need a copy of the original to play our mod as it is, so just play it, please.
Yep. They should
Mhm.
definitely do. I think we got past all the important questions. But before ending this interview, is there anything you want to say about the Coffin fandom, the modding community, and do you guys have any modding tips for anyone out there who wants to make the Coffin mod?
Okay, there's three distinct questions there. Where do we want to where do we want to start, guys? Why don't we
I have some
why don't
tips.
we start with, yeah, go for it,
I think
literally
it's
me.
one person for each question. I think so.
Yeah, that's what we do.
So, in regards to the question, do we have any tips for mod makers? I would say one tip that I use as a writer is keep in mind that Nemle's dialogue, Nemle does a very good job of making dialogue that sounds as good as it reads. Her dialogue is very, like, speakable. You know, the characters read like people would talk. So always, if you're writing dialogue for a TCOAAL mod, say the dialogue out to make sure it sounds natural to speak. Another thing is also close your eyes and envisage what your dialogue would look like when it has the character bus coming up. Like, what kind of expression would Andrew have when he says this line? What kind of expression would Ashley or Renee have when they say that line, and stuff like that? And you'll find that you end up writing dialogue that sounds very natural and very Nemle-esque. So that's my tip as the TCOAAL lead writer.
As the artist, my suggest would be to everyone is to reach out and ask for help. Honestly, we're all in a creative field working together to produce things. You are better off reaching out and asking, "Hey, how do you do this? What are your approach to learning how to draw this? How do you structure this? What are the dimensions and proportions of it?" Feel free to reach out to other people. We're a very friendly community, and generally trying to work together to make more things for the community as a whole. So feel free to reach out, ask for help, get connected. You will only find positivity from what I have personally experienced from people, is you don't know until you ask.
As for the Coffin fandom and the modding communities, I have seen it highs and I had seen it lows, but throughout all, I have enjoyed my stay in this community very much so. Especially in the modding communities, you'd be very surprised how nearly tightly knitted it is. They've been told that other programmers, artists, and writers have been working on different projects at the same time, and which I do love to hear that about this new ground of the modding community, because before this mod came out, the most widely known mod was like the Ashley with huge tits, the Freaky Off mod,
Yeah.
and a couple of others, including that Andy is Sick mod, well, game.
Visual novel.
So yeah, before that, that visual novel. So before that, it really was like just a small niche thing that took itself seriously. And I legitimately believe that once we made the announcement and once we released the mod, it had opened a new perspective in this community, which I hope to God that it is continually growing. Because I have seen like other community, good example, the indie project Star Sec, like their community are still prospering even though the game had been like a decade old. Because well, I know it's like my higher hopes for like something like this, and I do hope it does happen. This singular project have opened the floodgates for like all the others new projects.
I would say a number of projects that have been
Yeah.
worked on along with the Renee mod as well. Because we have worked and communicated with the makers of the Kali mod, the makers of the Nina mod. A lot of these mods have really shifted and changed to a new era of modding for this game. And I feel that structurally is really good for the community as a whole to see that there is more that can be done besides just reskins. I feel that a lot of the community is built up of people working together and just loving this thing. So I don't understand why a lot of people get all up in arms about this ship and that ship and, whatever. It's like, yeah, respect everybody in this group. I mean, come on. Let people have fun doing what they want to do and enjoy.
Yeah, that's what I agree with. Like, I do understand, like, in some extent, why will you hate on a mod that by itself, like, just his own little thing. However, there is a good feeling of it, because I've been called and messaged by multiple lead modders that they want to, like, create their own mod, but don't know how to start. And I have been gifted a lot of stuff because arts and additional is, I guess, small accommodation and thank you. Because like back to like one of the questions before, it has shown a new perspective as well as a new, I guess, respect for some of the characters like Renee, and I like that. I truly like that. Our action has shown great effect in the community for mostly better and a little bit of bad, but that's very small negligent.
I wouldn't necessarily go that heavy with it doing bad. It's just getting more content out there and people reacting how that content is interpreted is always going to vary. I wouldn't say that it would have an inherently negative effect in any sort of way.
Yeah, I guess you're right. But to final off my questions, there's a lot of stuff that is coming over the horizon. Like this is just the first wave of like all the mod coming out. I have talked to some people that are interested in making their own like project centered around like the code communities. So there are gonna be a bunch of mods coming in like maybe next year or so, and they're gonna be like probably be a bit far more technical than ours. And I can't wait to see that.
Yeah.
Speaking on that topic, actually, in particular, Graveyard Shift as an organization, the TCOAAR project is not the only thing that we are currently working on. We have another project that is in the works in the background that if you are a fan of the type of content that we've made with TCOAAR and our approach to game building and the way that we're going to go here on out, that we have a little bit of our own project that's in the works that I think that a lot of people will enjoy.
Yeah, they've been making some great fine stuff in the background. I hope one day the community can see it.
Yeah. So one last question. As you guys probably know from watching the first episode of the Coffin mod creators interview, I'm gonna ask about why you guys would put the couple of Amber or Renee on a tier list.
Well, I'm biased as fuck, so S tier.
Right.
Same. Same. S tier.
I am personally very proud of the work that we did and a lot of the things that we have planned for the future. And I know that a lot of people will have their own opinions, and everyone will generally say, "Oh, our mod's the best, all our mod's the best." Us at a solid A. There's a lot of things that we're doing really well. There's things that we need to change, but I feel that especially with the direction we're going from here, we are planning on going above and beyond a lot of the structures of what we were working on as a foundation. I mean, if you picture the content of what we're looking to do and the story that we're building, as like a numerical value of how much work there is, if episode 2 in the base game is a length of 1, we're looking to do like 1.75 with our episode 2, and depending on how episode 3 is for the base game is coming, we might be longer or even bigger than that. So it's one of those things that I don't want to say or praise us as something like that, but we're putting a lot of work and thought into the story and structure here that puts us in our own little space right now that I'm happy to see other mods doing and trying to approach, is to go bigger and go more expansive with what we're doing with storytelling and what we're presenting. Hell, we're hoping to, if everything works out, introduce an entirely different game mechanic coming into episode 2 and how the story is structured. So people can look forward to that. I think we're a solid A, and especially with what we're looking to do with the rest of the project.
So about the studio, keep in mind, this is like just a bunch of people that doing this on their free time, but conversations have been going on, and I really do want to make this like an official studio, like an official indie studio, like to do our own little thing. For example, that game that working on like in the background, I feel like gonna be a really good start for something. Wouldn't you agree?
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
You'll
very
see when we have something to announce.
yeah, that's very ambitious and inspiring. Thank you, Azrael, literally me and Arno, for coming to this interview today. I believe we
Thank
had
you
a
for
good
having
one.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Wish you guys the best of luck with the cover of Andrew and Renee episode 2, and thanks the rest of the people in Grow Your Ship for making this smart dream come true.
Mm-hmm.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Thank
and,
you.
I'll see you
Thank
60
you very
more
much.
lovers later.
Bye.
Yeah,
Thank
keep in
you.
touch.
Bye. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.